For those of you who have better things to do with your lives, Gabe Newell is the CEO of Valve, and he and Half-Life 3 were huge internet memes circa 2015 that sprouted over Steam Greenlight like a fungus. Apparently 3 years ago, the mere mention of Half-Life 3 was a hysterical, self-contained joke, back before it was a sobering reminder of shattered dreams and how bad Valve sucks these days. Speaking of Valve sucking, this is Gabe Newell Simulator, a Steam game that's built entirely around a 3.5-year-old dead meme. Spectacular. The game has two gameplay modes, a story mode and Steam mode, and Steam mode literally is not a game. You mash buttons on a menu to release games and make the money counter go up, use the money to buy upgrades, and literally just sit here watching the number. There's nothing else to do, no goal, and no fail condition, and the upgrades don't do anything except make the number go up faster. Oh, and there's a button marked Release Half-Life 3 because Doge, No Scope 420, Sanic, 4chan, LOLs, MLG, Uganda, Knuckles, Harambe, Dawei, Illuminati, my name Jeff, and whatever the else the shit memes! Oh, and the main menu screws up and doesn't click where you're clicking unless you selected the exact precise resolution of your monitor on the stock Unity Asset Launch menu. The story campaign has 7 levels, with the menu pointing out there's no level 3 because Valve can't count to 3, har 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 de har har! The game begins with a cutscene of a blank stage at a gaming show where they mock up Gabe Newell announcing Half-Life 3.
Time, Dr. Freeman? Is it really that time again?
And then you're suddenly a super polygonal Gabe in a Gordon Freeman armor in an office. The movement controls are god-awful. On top of having a slow, trudging movement speed and no run button, at least not one that works, it takes a few seconds for Gabe to start or stop moving every time you touch the movement keys. You barely move when walking left or right, and the camera moves super slowly. Everything you do feels tediously slow and slippery. It feels like you stop dead in your tracks every time you so much as graze an enemy or something in the environment, so you're constantly lurching to a halt and getting hung up on shit trying to cross this cluttered-ass office. The first enemies I encounter are 2 zombie-looking things in a side room, and my handgun barely affects them, so I try to leave, but between taking several seconds to point Gabe in a new direction and getting hung up on the narrow doorway and the enemies, I can't get out, and the enemies rip me to shreds. The hell of it is, I don't know if the abysmal movement controls are due to terrible programming, or if it's an intentional fat joke at Gabe's expense. They put in some pictures of him eating gigantic hamburgers in the office level, and an eat a cake option in the Steam mode, so it wouldn't surprise me if they sabotage the game's controls on purpose. Then again, you'll soon see why I have trouble believing anything in this game was done on purpose. Every time you die, you get kicked back to the main menu, so I tried to do the first level again, but there's a troll face saying that I have to restart the game. What? So the game blocks off access to the first and last levels unless you either play those levels first or close and then reopen the game. I'm pretty sure they just couldn't get the game's cutscenes to play more than once per game session and tried passing it off as a joke to cover their incompetence. Anyway, my handgun doesn't have the ammo to even piss off these monsters, so I run past them until I come across an ankle-high barrier that I can't cross. 3 monsters come bearing down on me, the controls lock up, and I die. Also, this game is completely friggin' mute apart from the few stages with stock music and the sounds of gunshots. The enemies make no sound, Gabe doesn't grunt when he's injured, it's dead silent. Well, it turns out there are 2 machine guns hidden off to the right, so I can finally kill these enemies, and I find out you have to climb over this ankle-high barrier by pressing E, so I climb the barrier, and I immediately get swarmed by 4 enemies at once and massacred. You sack of shit. How many freaking bullets does it take to kill these enemies? At least 24 shots to the center body mass, and it didn't even piss them off! Forced to replay this first level a lot, I start to notice a few things about these enemies. It's totally random what happens when they die. Sometimes the enemies have a proper death animation, sometimes they just warp into the floor, sometimes they slide along the floor when they die, and sometimes they just keep walking and disappear. You're never sure when an enemy is actually dead. Second, enemies only start attacking you if you get close to them. If you keep a certain distance away from enemies, they will stand completely still or walk back and forth a few feet on a simple patrol path. They don't react at all to being shot as long as you're not within their sensor range. Ow, 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 ow. But as I'm shooting enemies who just stand around wondering why they keep sprouting new breathing holes, I start to realize every enemy that I fight this way dies in 2 hits. 3 or 4 at most, but if I fight an enemy that's attacking me, sometimes they die after about 20 hits and sometimes they take 30 and don't even flinch. So what the hell? The game has a plethora of bugs that cause the hit detection to completely shit itself. If any of the enemies start attacking you, you can only kill them if the game is feeling nice. Plus, the sluggish controls mean that it's tough to aim at point-blank targets and you die in a few hits. The combat is so broken, glitchy, and unplayable that abusing the stupid-ass inactive AI is pretty much the only way to play the game. The only way to make progress is to carefully inch through every level, methodically making your way through the stage, spotting enemies without waking them up so you can kill them without a fight. It's tedious, but it seems to be the only way to survive the combat. And just when I'm starting to get a lid on all of the combat glitches, I find out that firing your own weapons can kill you. During an attempt at clearing this 4-enemy ambush, I died from firing a gun without having taken a hit. I didn't catch it on video, but I came close to replicating it. There, no enemies anywhere close to touching me, and I lost 3/4 of my health just from firing my gun. How does that even happen? So you can just spontaneously combust from game glitches. Also, if you reload while your gun still has a partial magazine, you lose that partial magazine. And again, I don't know if that was done intentionally for realism or if it's another glitch. I'm not really inclined to give this game any benefit of the doubt when I'm getting killed by my own gun. At least one of the recurring glitches is funny. Every time you fire a gun, Gabe's left arm clips into his body and swivels wildly like his shoulder's been dislocated. I am not exaggerating. Gabe's left arm is almost constantly glitched into phasing inside of his body. Let's see what it looks like from the... Hey guys, this is how you hold a gun, right? It gets better if you try it while you're holding a pistol, where Gabe's arm is just poking out the front of his torso like an alien chest burster. Level 1 ends with a maze, which is incredibly tedious to navigate since you can barely move. At the end of level 1 is a portal labeled Cloning Lab, and once you go through it, the level just kind of cuts off. There are no transitions or intros between levels. You're just wandering anonymous locations with no end goal the entire game. My first 2 attempts at level 2 came to an abrupt end because an enemy would start charging at me, the game would glitch so that none of the hits counted, and I'd get slaughtered. Even if I do kill the enemies, the game is suddenly stingier with its ammo than the Resident Evil 2 remake was, so if one enemy glitches and takes a truckload of fire, I'm boned for the rest of the stage. Check this out. My bullets aren't registering. Is there an invisible wall between us or something? No, there's no wall. Ah, shit, now he's charging me. Of course the bullets aren't freaking working. Well, he's dead. And I've already blown through most of the ammo that you're given for this entire level. I seriously came within an inch of rage quitting here because it sank in what a tedious chore this game is. You have to slowly trudge through the entire level, carefully checking every corner for enemies before they can activate, painstakingly checking every room for ammo, and you regularly drop dead or run out of ammo from any one of a dozen glitches. You crawl at a snail's pace through the game, only to periodically get sent back to start because the game is nigh unplayable. I might as well stop here. It doesn't look like there's a story to speak of, and I doubt the combat's going to evolve. But I'm more stubborn and/or stupid than that. Anyway, there comes a point in level 2 where you can't enter a room without alerting an enemy and sending him into glitched invulnerable kill mode, so I tried just running away from him, and it worked. Turns out all the enemies move at the exact same speed as you do, so if you run, they can't catch you. I ran my way all the way to the exit. Level 4, you're in a set of linear hallways, and I could swear I've seen this environment before. Maybe it's the same asset pack as Galactic Hitman, maybe it's the extra stage from Air Control that I'm thinking of. Either way, I'm pretty sure everything in this game except for Gabe himself is a pre-bought asset flip. An asset flip Gabe wouldn't look this shitty, and the polygons on his back wouldn't be constantly clipping into one another. Anyway, level 4 is crazy short. You run down some tight halls, enemies ambush you around corners like dicks, and then you find another anonymous portal. Okay, seriously, I can't climb or vault over these ankle-high platforms around the exit. Level 5, you're still in completely interchangeable hallways, only now the frame rate has shit itself, and it's about half what it is through the rest of the game. My first crack at this level, I got swarmed by tiny enemies that you don't notice because none of the enemies make sound, and you can't line up shots because you're constantly recoiling from the damage. Oh, and also the pickup function only works when the game feels like it, and I can't pick up this bandage that I sorely need. I've also noticed that if you slip behind an enemy or they slide past you while they're in the middle of an attack animation, their AI seems to reset and they completely lose track of where you are. Dumbass. Most of level 5 is a maze of super tight corridors where you can never tell where you are and you keep getting hung up on shit, but at least the level gives you plenty of ammo. Gives you plenty of ammo so I could blow it all trying to kill this dude. Why won't you die? Screw it, making a run for it. Oh, thank crap, the exit's right there. Level 6 is also, holy shit, we're in space! Why? Who cares? Level 6 is also pitifully short. There's just a fork early in the level. One path leads down this huge hall that's full of enemies and has no items, and the other path pretty much goes straight to the exit. The weird thing is, at the end of level 6, you find a ton of ammo and 5 keys floating out in the middle of the hallway that you're clearly supposed to pick up, but you find this shit right before the level exit, and your inventory wipes at the end of each level, so the items just disappear before you can use any of them. Sorry I'm kind of blazing through this, but after dying a lot on the first 2 stages and learning the ins and outs of the game's brokenness, I really did breeze through the rest of the game. You fight the same enemies in every level, and even though there are 5 or 6 character models, they all have the same attacks and lack of AI, so it's basically one stupid-ass enemy cloned endlessly across the game. You have the exact same weapons in each level, 1 useless handgun and 2 or 3 identical machine guns, and the only other items you find are bandages to recover health. It's the same level 6 times with slightly different arrangements of hallways and varying levels of generosity with ammo. No puzzles, no platforming. Levels 5, 6, and 7 are full of items that look like you're meant to interact with them, between keypads, item boxes, and a huge core with control panels, but none of them do anything. There really is nothing else to the game but basic guns, empty halls, and dumb AI. Level 7 opens with giving you a ton of guns and ammo, and then it dumps you into a huge circular room with 7 enemies charging you. Aw, bless you, Jimmy. You thought that you made an actual game. I find it fascinating how all of these walls are completely untextured, in stark contrast to the richly detailed space station environments from the last few levels. What's the matter? Had to raid more than 1 asset pack for levels? Level 7 also has a fork in the stage. If you go right, it takes you to a huge round room that takes ages to cross and has no items, and empties into a dead end with 3 of those respirator aliens who almost constantly glitch invincible. If you go left, it takes you pretty much straight to the level exit. This is it, up to the final stage, the level that's so important that you have to reset the game before they let you tackle it. Here we go! Oh, the final level is one tiny room with a computer. Anticlimactic. The computer prompts you to either release or delete Half-Life 3. If you release Half-Life 3, you get footage of Gabe walking out of the game event to announce the game, and I'm totally sure this footage has been used with permission. If you choose to delete Half-Life 3, Gabe tells Half-Life fans to go to hell. I thought that's what publishing Hunt Down the Freeman was for. And then the planet explodes. Again, I'm sure the guy who couldn't get Gabe's left arm to stay in its socket totally put together this animation that totes my goats wasn't stolen from anywhere.
Hi, my name's Gabe Newell, and if you're curious about Half-Life 3, go board on a plane to hell.
And then the credits list a single guy, except for the people who helped make Gabe's character model. This does not surprise me. Well, sadly, that's still not quite the end. There's a free DLC called Portal Mode, which is so terribly implemented that you can't access it from the game itself. You have to right-click the game in your Steam library. The DLC is an extremely cheap knockoff of Portal. If you click the mouse, portals will spontaneously appear on the walls wherever you're looking, and you instantaneously pop between portals when you touch one. Except the portals are horrendously programmed. Often you warp to a portal only to immediately warp back to the first one, and the graphics could give you a seizure. There's just no joy to screwing around like there is in the real game. The first room, you use a ceiling portal to get up a single ledge and then find an exit. The second room, you jump across a few boxes and then find an exit. The third room, you use a ceiling portal to get up a single ledge and then you find a piece of cake on a table. And there is no in-game way out of this mode. There's no exit from the third room, there's no pause menu, and there's no way to get killed. So 2 minutes of horribly programmed shit that's barely gameplay is all the DLC gives you. Oh, and also you get a pair of fat jokes. They spell out in the first room that you can't run or jump because Gabe is fat, but then you can in the other rooms because Gabe grew a beard, and every time you jump or hit the ground, there's a huge bwah sound, like when the T-Rex takes a step in Jurassic Park. Ha, ha, ha. They used to charge money for this DLC. Gabe Newell Simulator is your typical asset flip garbage clogging up the Steam store. Nearly non-existent enemy AI, levels you can tell were pre-made since they're full of empty rooms and dead ends, mismatched art assets, barely any gameplay, a non-stop barrage of game-breaking glitches because Unity is not designed to do all the work for you, and relying on cheap memes or a bare association with something that was at one time popular to goose up sales. I just feel it's helpful to check in every now and then to remind people, this is considered an acceptable game on Steam. And that should never stop being sad.